So students, today we are going to start with the next topic, that is classification of kingdom protista. Regarding to kingdom protista, we have already studied briefly in our previous lecture that was pertaining to five kingdom classification. We did some of the important characteristics of kingdom protista in that. In today's topic, we will be discussing briefly again about some of the important characteristics of kingdom protista, but major emphasis in this topic will be on classification of kingdom protista. Now, as we all know, kingdom protista, it includes all the individuals which are unicellular or colonial but eukaryotic organisms. So it includes individuals from different phyla like plants, like animals and fungi. So all the organisms which were unicellular or colonial and eukaryotic, which were earlier grouped under either under kingdom plantae, kingdom animalia or kingdom fungi, they were taken out, and a separate kingdom was formed which was called kingdom protista. Now, regarding kingdom protista, its name, first of all, if we see the etymology of its name, the term protista, it was given by Haeckel in 1868. Actually, he gave the term protestant, which evolved into protista. He took this term from another Greek word, protistos, which means the very first. So, protista, it involves those organisms which were the very which came in at the very start of evolution. Those eukaryotic organisms which came at the very start of the evolution of the organisms. So the first protists, as we can see here, they evolved about 1.7 billion years ago. Now, as I have already told you, they are all single-celled or colonial eukaryotic organisms which do not form tissues. So in protista, we have kept all those organisms which are either unicellular or they may form colonies. They may be multicellular, but those multicellular organisms which do not form tissues, for example, algae. Algae, some of the algae, they show multicellularity, but they are not differentiated into tissues. They do not form true tissues. So all those organisms which are either single-celled or colonial or even multicellular, but undifferentiated with undifferentiated tissue, those organisms are kept under kingdom protista. So it includes similar appearing but diverse phyla. So what does this term mean? Similar appearing but diverse phyla. The similarity is on the basis of their cellular structure. That means all the organisms belonging to kingdom protista, they share one common characteristics, that is they are unicellular, and another thing which is common among them is their eukaryotic nature. So similar appearing. All the organisms belonging to protista are unicellular, colonial and eukaryotic, but they come from the diverse phyla. That means either they are of plant origin or animal origin or fungal origin. So it includes, protista includes similar appearing but diverse phyla that are not related through an exclusive common ancestor and that have different life cycle. No, because they are not related to one another, they have different life cycle, they have different trophic levels, that means they feed upon different things and their mode of nutrition are different, their modes of locomotion are even different, and their cellular structures, they are also different. So only similarity among these individuals which we have kept under kingdom protista is their unicellular or colonial nature and eukaryotic cellular components. Okay, that means they have the eukaryotic nucleus. They have a true nucleus. So this kingdom, it forms link between other kingdoms of plants, animals and fungi. Why do they form link between other kingdoms of plants, animals and fungi? Because it involves it includes the unicellular eukaryotic plants which were earlier kept under plant kingdom, unicellular eukaryotic organisms which are like animals, and unicellular eukaryotic animals organisms which are like fungi. So members of protista, they are primarily aquatic in nature. So all the members of protista kingdom, they are primarily aquatic in nature. That means they require water. So either they live in the water or they require moisture for their survival. So they cannot survive in harsh, dry conditions. All the members of protista, they require water in one form or another form. Either they remain inside the water totally submerged, or they require damp or are moist conditions for their survival. So many protists like algae, they are primary producers. So a primary producer means they perform photosynthesis and they are responsible for production of the of food material. Primary producer in aquatic ecosystems because algae are present in aquatic ecosystems. But some protists, they are responsible for serious human diseases like malaria and sleeping sickness. So some of the protists, they are beneficial to humankind or animal other life on the earth, and some of them they can be harmful. Now coming to general characteristics. So before going in for detailed classification of the kingdom Protista, we will briefly go through the general characteristics of these organisms. So as we have already discussed, they are simple eukaryotic organisms. So simple eukaryotic. What do we mean by eukaryotic? Eukaryotic means having a true nucleus. So all those organisms which have a true nucleus means a nucleus having a limiting membrane in the form of nuclear envelope which encloses chromosomes. That is called a true nucleus. So these are simple eukaryotic organisms. So most of organisms, these protists, they are unicellular and some of them they are colonial. So mostly they are unicellular, single celled, and some of them they are colonial. Most protists they live in water, some in moist soil, and even the body of human and plants. So most of the protists, as I have already discussed with you in our previous slides, they are aquatic in nature. So they live in water, or they require moist soil for their survival, or even human body. Some of the protists they are parasites of humans and plants, or other animals and plants. So they have wide variety of habitat. They can live in water, moist soil, and even humans and plants. Now these organisms are eukaryotic since they have membrane-bound nucleus and endomembrane system, like already discussed. They have membrane-bound nucleus, that's why they are called as the eukaryotic, and they have endomembrane system. Endomembrane systems involve structures like Golgi complex, lysosomes, vesicles, endoplasmic reticulum. These all form endomembrane system. Except for mitochondria and chloroplast, rest of the membrane-bound structures present inside a eukaryotic cell, they are all called as the endomembrane. They all form the endomembrane system. So they have mitochondria for cellular respiration. So all the protists, whether they are of animal origin or plant origin or of fungal origin, they have mitochondria for cellular respiration. And some of them they have chloroplast for photosynthesis. For example, in case of algae, which are autotrophic in nature, perform photosynthesis, so they require chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is present in the chloroplasts. Now, nuclei in case of protists, it contains multiple strands of DNA, and the number of nucleotides are significantly less than complex eukaryotes. Now, they are also eukaryotes. Protists are all eukaryotes, and the metazoans means higher organisms. They are also eukaryotes. But when we study the DNA of these eukaryotes, complex eukaryote and simple eukaryotes like protists, we find a significant difference in number of nucleotides in the DNA of prokaryotes as compared to the DNA of the DNA of the protist and DNA of the higher metazoans. Now, in them, locomotion is by means of flagella, cilia, pseudopodia. So they have different modes of locomotion. In Protista, different modes of locomotion are there. It can be either with the help of flagella, cilia, or pseudopodia, and many protists they are non-motile. They do not move from one place to another place. If we come to respiration, cellular respiration is primarily aerobic. So most of the protists they show aerobic respiration. That means they require oxygen for their survival. But some of those protists which live under the mud in the ponds or lakes or oceans, which are covered under the mat where oxygen supply is not there, or which are present in the tracks of animals. In them, the protists are facultatively anaerobes. So they are facultative anaerobes or aerobes. Most of the protists they are aerobes, but some of them they can be anaerobes. And regarding the nutrition, they can be both heterotrophic or autotrophic. So all the protists which are of plant origin, they are autotrophic. They perform photosynthesis. And all the protists which are of either of animal origin or fungal origin, they are heterotrophic. They cannot produce their own food. Now flagellates, they are filter feeders. So they show filter feeding, and some protists they feed by process of endocytosis, that is formation of food vacuole by engulfing a bacteria and extending their cell membrane. So those organisms which are flagellates, they show they show filter feeding, and those protists like amoeba, you must have studied amoeba in your previous class. It has pseudopodia. So what do pseudopodia do? They extend their plasma membrane around the bacteria or whatever the food material they are engulfing, and they take that they form a food vacuole by the process of endocytosis and show feeding in this way. So flagellates they are filter feeders, while some of the protists they show endocytosis. Even some of the protists they absorb the digested food material through their general body surface. Regarding the reproduction, some species have complex life cycle involving multiple organisms. For example, if you take example of Plasmodium is malarial parasite. It spends its life in two hosts. One is human beings, man, and another is mosquito. So they may have complex life cycle, and some may reproduce sexually and other asexually. Some of the protists they can show sexual reproduction, and some of them they show asexual reproduction. And some of the protists they also form cysts in adverse conditions. For example, whenever there is desiccation means whenever there is drought-like conditions, moisture is not there or water content dries up around the protist. Some of the protists they can protect themselves by undergoing encystment. They form cyst. Some protists they are pathogens of both animals and plants. For example, Plasmodium falciparum causes malaria in case of humans, and protists are major component of plankton. So they are major component of plankton. Here, plankton is maybe a new term for you. Plankton are all those microscopic organisms which float along with the water current. They float along with the water current. All those protists they are called as the planktons. So protists they form a major component of the plankton. Now coming to the classification of kingdom Protista. Since we have already discussed that members of kingdom Protista they have been taken out from the either from the plant kingdom or animal kingdom or kingdom fungi. Why were they taken out from these kingdoms? Because they were significantly they showed significant differences from these kingdoms. Although they were either autotrophs or heterotrophs, they showed characteristics like plants or they showed characteristics like animals or fungi, but they were unicellular. So all the unicellular organisms from either from the plants or animals or fungi, they were taken out and a separate kingdom was created that was named as kingdom Protista. So members of kingdom Protista are grouped together because they do not fit into other kingdoms. Why don't they fit into other kingdoms? Because members of plant kingdom Plantae, members of kingdom Animalia and fungi, they are all eukaryotic multicellular organisms. They show tissue and tissue formation, true tissue formation. They show organ and organ systems in case of animals, for example. So because the members of kingdom Protista they were unicellular but eukaryotic, so they were taken out from this plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and fungi, and grouped together into a new kingdom that was called kingdom Protista. So accordingly, those organisms, unicellular eukaryotic organisms which were taken out from the plant kingdom, now they are grouped under plant-like protists. So first group of kingdom Protista it is the plant-like protist. Those which were taken out from the animal kingdom and behave like animals, that means they are heterotrophic, they do not have a cell wall in them, and they are eukaryotic. They have been kept under another category, that is the animal-like protist, which we call the protozoa, and all those protists all those organisms which were unicellular and they behaved like fungi. That means they have some characteristics of fungi. But they were unicellular, so they were taken out from the fungi and kept under the category of fungus-like protists. So first we will be discussing the plant-like protist. Thereafter we will be discussing the animal-like protist, and lastly we will be discussing briefly about the fungus-like protist. So plant-like protists, they include all the algae or algae. You may call either call them algae or algae. They are both correct terms. So algae or algae, they may be unicellular or multicellular. All the animal-like protists they are called as the protozoa, and they include organisms like paramecium, amoeba. You have already studied these organisms, and fungus-like protists will be discussed at the last.